Good evening and welcome, everybody. My name is Reverend West McNeil. I'm the director of the Labor Religion Coalition of New York State. And on behalf of LRC and the Kairos Center and the New York State Poor People's Campaign, I'm really excited to welcome you to tonight's rally and petition launch to end child poverty in New York State. It is really good to just have the opportunity to share some space together, even virtually. Like I'm sure many of you have, I have found this last week to be a pretty heavy one as I've been reflecting on and processing with others the results of the election last week. And of course, we know that no matter which way the election had gone, we would still need to be coming together here tonight. We have really a crisis of poverty and inequality in our state. And it's a crisis that our legislature and governor really just have to take seriously and address. And we know that crisis has both developed and worsened over Democratic and Republican presidents, Democratic and Republican legislatures, Democratic and Republican governors. And so no matter who was going to take office in Washington, D.C. and Albany in January, we had our work cut out for us. But unfortunately, we do find ourselves in a situation post-election where if the Trump administration follows through on what it has been suggesting it will do, we are likely to see poverty and inequality in our country and state get much worse. So we know that we're likely facing some difficult times ahead. And that makes it all the more urgent and important that our leaders in New York State take really proactive and bold steps to protect New Yorkers, and especially the most vulnerable communities. And certainly poor and low-income children are among the most vulnerable in our state. And that is the community, the population that we are lifting up and focusing on, particularly in this rally tonight. New York has some of the highest child poverty rates in the country. Rochester and Syracuse and Buffalo consistently rank among the worst in the nation in terms of child poverty rates, with almost half of kids falling below the federal poverty line, which we know is a very, very low bar. So this is an urgent moral crisis, really. In a state as wealthy as our state is, no child should be living in poverty. And the good news is that New York has begun to take some steps to address this. And so, as we'll hear more about very soon, New York made a commitment in 2021 to cut child poverty in half by 2033 and set up a commission that is about to issue its recommendations on how to get to that goal. And this is an exciting step, but we're here tonight because we know it's going to take some significant organizing and mobilizing to make sure that New York follows through on that commitment. And especially in this moment, we need New York to not just tinker around the edges, but to really implement some bold policies to lift kids and families out of poverty, as well as protecting other vulnerable communities and the rights of all of us. And we know that New York can and must ensure that these policies are paid for through a fair tax system that raises more revenue from the wealthiest New Yorkers, who are the ones who have been benefiting from the inequality of our economy. So this is what we have in front of us. And one of the first steps is to get Governor Hochul to include these policies in her executive budget. So that is what we're going to be talking more about here tonight and starting to take some action in that direction. So thank you again for being here and being part of this. And I'm going to turn it over now to my friend and Kairos Center's Culture and Communications Digital Organizer, Pauline Pisano, to share our cultural opening.
Thank you so much, West. We are going to sing the song, Everybody's Got a Right to Live. We sing Poverty No More. We cry justice for the poor. I'm going to invite all of the speakers and participants, thank you, for joining us, and we're going to sing together, although you might only hear me. Here we go. And this song has a long history in our movement. It was written in 1968 at the original Poor People's Campaign. The Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival, took up that work 50 years later and coined the words, instead of before this campaign fails, we'll all go down to jail, we're singing, we sing poverty no more, we cry justice for the poor. Here we go. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. We sing poverty no more. We cry justice for the poor. 'Cause everybody's got a right to live. You got it. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. We sing poverty no more. We cry justice for the poor. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to love. Everybody's got a right to dream. Everybody's got a right to breathe. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to love. Everybody's got a right to dream. Everybody's got a right to. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. We sing poverty no more. We cry justice for the poor. Everybody's got a right to live. We sing poverty no more. We cry justice for the poor. And everybody's got a right. We're singing. Everybody's got a right. Everybody's got a right to live. Thank you so much. We cry justice.
Yes, thank you so much, Pauline. We are going to turn now to hear from some incredible leaders from throughout New York State. We know that poverty and inequality is impacting people and families and kids all over the state. So I'm going to introduce now three people First, Melissa Anderson, who is from near me in Schenectady, New York. Then we'll hear from Aurelis Figueroa, who is based in Upper Manhattan. And then we're going to hear a message that was recorded a little bit earlier today from Kaylee DeShane, who is up in Messina, New York, near the Canadian border. So thank you so much to the three of you for sharing.
Hi, everyone. Good morning or good evening. My name is Melissa. I'm a working mom of twin 12-year-old boys. I want to talk to you today about quarters. Quarters hold a lot of power in my life right now. And let me explain. Working in Albany with 2 young kids, I was getting a little help after being downsized and subsequent unemployment. About $400 over 6 months from HEAP. That's about 8 quarters a day. 10% off school aftercare funded by the provider. That's about 5 quarters a day. And $23 a month in SNAP benefits. That's 3 quarters a day, give or take. 16 quarters. And I was extremely grateful for each and every one of them. So what can you do with those? 5 quarters will get you a single box of pasta, no sauce. 8 can buy a small bag of rice. Forget fruits and vegetables. They're just out of reach altogether. $23 a month is so low that it's absurd. Now, after a year, my job offered me a raise. And you guessed it, a quarter an hour. That quarter raised my income $520 a year, which was enough to terminate my SNAP benefits. Big deal, right? It's only 3 quarters. But you see, it wasn't just about that $23 in SNAP. Now my kids were ineligible for free school lunches. Even at the low school rate, lunch and breakfast for 2 kids was now $60 a week, every week. Each week I got more and more stressed as I robbed from the mortgage money or borrowed from the gas fund, hoping that I could eke one more commute to work out of my nearly empty gas tank. So for those keeping track, that quarter raise was now costing me $129 more every month. I live very carefully. I have a small house with a reasonable mortgage. I drove a 2005 Camry with 265,000 miles on it until it literally died. We use coupons and food banks, and I shop very, very carefully. And when a holiday comes up, I have to figure out where that extra daycare money is going to come from. When the car needs brakes to pass inspection so I can go to work, I look around for what I can sell. There's not much there. The expanded Empire State Child Credit that the Child Poverty Reduction Advisory Council has proposed would help my family and so many others. For me, the tax credit would help cover that holiday daycare that's not included in regular daycare costs every month, to pay the doctor copay if my child gets sick. In September, the supplemental tax credit helped me buy school supplies after paying for a whole month of summer childcare. These tax credits work, and they work very, very quickly. So my story is not unique. There are so very many families fighting every day to just make it work, to get everything they can out of the quarters that we have. We need to work together to raise our voices and to create action, to make more life about more than just 3 quarters a day. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. Go ahead, Aurelis.
Thank you indeed. Everybody got a right to live. Good evening. My name is Aurelis Figueroa. I'm here in New York City and in the New York City region for the Poor People's Campaign. I'm a single mother living in the most unequal state and one of the expensive cities, New York City. I can attest that the tax credit made a difference. The tax child credit that we were getting. But today, besides sharing that little bit about myself, I want to speak for the immigrants, for the women that I'm working with through our movement church, La Iglesia del Pueblo. Since And you can imagine how people are feeling today. During the week, these last few days, my phone and text asking me the same thing. What are we going to do? People are scared, people are suffering, people are disoriented. So what I did was I did a little survey. I just sent it to the chat and asked people to respond to these few questions that Pauline is going to share with us. I want you to see what they are saying about this topic of child poverty and what they can do. So Pauline, we have the slide.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
A second. Here we go.
Yeah. So I just asked them. Okay. What is the main expense when raising our children? And you can see the 84% say food, comida. What is the more challenging? What is more challenging for you to provide to your children? 44%. Comida, food. What is the main challenge for you as an immigrant? The lack of job, finding a job, say the 56%. And how much do you think you would need per month per child to provide a good quality of life for your children? 60% say between 200 and 500. Those are immigrant women who think that, yes, your state should work to eliminate child poverty. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. And we're going to hear one more testimony. I'm going to share my screen real quick.
Hi, my name is Kaylee Deshane, and I am currently a school social worker. And before that, for 13 years, I did addiction counseling. So I had a lot of experiences with poverty professionally and how it's impacting our community. But I've also had some of my own personal experiences. So starting with personal, I went from basically being like lower middle income class to having triplets who were born 4 months too early, and immediately became part of the poverty class, which was a really hard shift if you haven't done it before. It's hard anyway, but it was also hard because I hadn't done it before, and having to learn all the systems kind of on my own. So I'm still using a lot of the systems. I have my own personal experiences with a lot of the programs that are offered to people who fall within the poverty lines. And then professionally as well. So professionally, I think poverty is getting significantly worse, and we're a little bit behind as far as how we look at those statistics. So by the time we see statistics, I think it's already gotten a lot worse. Right now, I'm definitely seeing, more of an issue for myself this year and more issues for other families professionally. So, I know the neighborhood center food pantries have said that they've been busier than ever. They're getting a lot of people they've never had before, ever, coming into the pantries who are really struggling because of the increase in cost of everything, all of our utilities, groceries, gas, just kind of everything. So that hurts the whole community because more and more people aren't spending their money in businesses because they don't have any, and they're using it, they're going to food pantries to get the things they need. And why does child poverty matter? For a lot of reasons, but I think one of the biggest reasons that child poverty matters is that being in poverty as a child, especially when you're in it and you're not getting the things you need, can act as an adverse childhood experience. And when that happens, it puts us more at risk for tons of different things when we're adults too. So not only are those children more at risk for things like anxiety, depression, mental health stuff, issues in school, they're more at risk for having those issues as an adult as well. So more issues as health issues as an adult. They're way more likely to have things like heart disease and a lot of other health complications. And that impacts all of us. We can experience that ourselves, but it's probably going to be somebody we know. And it's also going to impact funding for insurances and things like that if so many people have all of these health issues. So I just think poverty is a super important issue, and you're lucky if you've never had to experience it personally. But if you are experiencing it professionally, have that empathy for people, because it's a really scary place to be, to feel like you can't provide for your family and to be afraid of what's to come in the future. Thanks.
So many thanks to Melissa and Aurelis and Kaylee for sharing this and being part of this fight as we keep moving forward to try to lift from the bottom so that all of us can rise together. We're really grateful to have our next speaker with us. I'm gonna turn it over now to Susan Welber, who's a supervising attorney at the Legal Aid Society. Thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you so much, Reverend McNeil. I am so honored and grateful for the opportunity to be part of the virtual panel with everyone that's spoken so far and performed, and everyone who will. I am a government benefits specialist. I serve the people of the Bronx for the Legal Aid Society. And I also teach poverty law at Fordham Law School. And I just want to share that every year when we look at all the deficiencies in the law, I share with my students the platform of the Poor People's Campaign as a vision of what could be possible if we, join together and make the progress that we really need. So I really appreciate speaking at any event hosted by all of you. So I'm here to just sort of lay out, in anticipation of you reading the petition that you have before you, what is really on the table through the Governor's Child Poverty Reduction Advisory Council, which is kind of a mouthful. So first, I'll just take a step back and say that the CPRAC, or the Child Poverty Reduction Advisory Council, was created by lawmakers in New York State by law to say, Governor, you've got to reduce child poverty by half over the next 10 years. And so that is the mandate of this law. And what New York's poised to have for the first time over the next month is the first set of official recommendations that go to the governor for her to include them in the budget, which is the best chance of having them actually become law. And the governor's not necessarily going to do it just because her hand-picked Child Poverty Reduction Advisory Council says she should. It's going to take all of us raising our voices and demanding that she listen to this body that was set up for this very purpose, especially with the changes at the federal level of government. New York has to stand strong for New Yorkers, protect immigrant families. Each of the policies that are on the table, New York State do just that. So it's actually perfect timing. So what's in the set of CPRAC recommendations that we're likely to see come out? I like to think of it as a three-legged stool, and each leg of the stool is super important. One leg is tax credits. One leg is public benefits, cash assistance, and a food benefit for non-citizen households. And then the third leg is housing assistance, which we know has been a problem, and a problem that the governor has acknowledged for a long time. So I'm just going to briefly take you through what's in each of those three legs, what each of those legs consists of. So for the child tax credit, which you've already heard about, that would go up from a maximum of $330 per child per year to $1,500 per child per year, which is a huge increase. And as you heard from folks, from Melissa in particular, testify that would make a huge difference in meeting expenses. So that means if you had 2 children, that your income would increase by $3,000 through the tax credit. The tax credits would also be changed for this leg of the stool to make them refundable. That means that even if you're not working more than, let's say you're not making more than $3,000 a year. There are people who work very low wage jobs and they're not making $3,000 a year. You'd still get the tax credit. So it would change the eligibility so that it would be more broadly available. And then finally, it would be indexed to inflation so that, you know, 1,500 might sound like a good amount now, but 10 years from now, 1,500 will be far too little. And instead of having to go back and, you know, convince the governor, whoever that is at that time, to increase it, it would just automatically increase every year. The other feature of the child tax credit that's on the table is it would be made available to ITIN filers, often non-citizen filers who don't have a social security number, which would be a great way of protecting immigrant families, especially right now when they're under attack. Okay, so that's the tax credit leg of the stool. The second leg of the stool is public benefits, which is my area. So the cash assistance grant that you get if you're on New York State welfare program and receive the New York State welfare program, those benefits, the ones that you need for the basic needs, what Melissa described using those quarters for laundry detergent, to supplement the food budget, for personal care items like deodorant and diapers for children, clothes for growing kids. Those amounts have not been increased since 2011, and they are abysmally low. They were never high enough. In 2011, they were already too low. And just so you have a sense, for those of you who aren't familiar with the program, a family of 3, including children, receives right now a grant of $389 per month for the whole month. Less than $400 a month for the family of 3. And as Arelis showed in her survey, that is not nearly enough for people to meet their basic needs. So what's great about the public benefit stool of the recommendations is that they would double that amount. They would double all the amounts. They would increase them by 100% and index them to inflation. And this is a critical step to help the lowest income New Yorkers and give people who are looking for work a chance to support themselves with dignity while they're finding that job that they need. Or many people rely on cash assistance while they're waiting to become eligible for SSI, which is a benefit for people with severe disabilities. That can take years, and they need assistance while they're waiting. They can't work. That's why they applied for SSI. So these would be huge steps forward for public benefits that we need right now. We desperately need. The other public benefit change is many non-citizens are not eligible for SNAP, or what we used to call food stamps. The recommendations being contemplated and put forward by the CPRAC would include a benefit that is only for the purchase of food for immigrant families who are not eligible for SNAP. So that would also be a huge benefit to New Yorkers living in poverty. The third leg of the stool is housing. And many of you are probably familiar with Section 8. And the way Section 8 works is that you never have to pay more than 30% of your income as rent. So whether your income is very small or bigger, and you stabilize, find a job, or get Social Security, something that allows you to support your basic needs, your rent will never be more than 30% of that income, whether it goes up or down. And the CPRAC proposals include a state Section 8 program that would be available to families regardless of immigration status, that would allow people to actually have the ability to afford their rent, whether their income is low or whether it's a little bit more. And it would be an entitlement for people who make less than 50% of the median income in their area. So it would be really an impactful program. We think all three legs of this stool are critical, crucial, and we're glad that everyone who's signing the petition will have their voices heard to support this amazing set of proposals. So that's really what I have to say, and thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Susan, for giving us that background and for the work that you do. And we are going to move into taking action and looking at this petition. And so for that, I'm going to introduce my friend and one of the tri-chairs of the New York State Poor People's Campaign, Ramitha Pillay. Ramitha.
Hello, everyone. I am here in upstate New York, in St. Lawrence County, one of the poorest counties in New York State. I am also an educator and understand how poverty impacts our children and their education. So I'm excited about this petition. I'm excited about this agenda of reducing child poverty. And so the petition, we'll just quickly go through it. So you're going to sign it in a minute, and so you will know what's in the petition and what you're signing. The petition, the title, Keep New York's Commitment to Cut Child Poverty, and it's to Governor Kathy Hochul. We write to you as concerned organizations, congregations, and individuals from across New York State to urge you to include measures in your executive budget to cut child poverty in half and to pay for those policies through progressive taxes targeting our state's wealthiest individuals and corporations, especially as the incoming Trump administration signals its intention to cut funding for safety net programs and cut taxes for the rich. New York must take bold, proactive steps to protect the most vulnerable New Yorkers and rein in the flow of wealth from the bottom to the top. As your administration has recognized child poverty in New York is at unacceptable levels, our child poverty rate is higher than 40 other states, with 1 in 5 kids living in poverty. In the Bronx, more than a third of children are in poverty, and in Rochester, Buffalo, and Syracuse, the rate is more than 40%. As common sense and countless studies show, poverty has devastating consequences on children's well-being and their future development. New York has a moral obligation to confront this crisis. We applaud the commitment New York made in 2021 through the Child Poverty Reduction Act to cut child poverty in half over the following decade. While we believe New York can and must aim to abolish child poverty altogether, this is an important first target. Thanks to the work of the Child Poverty Reduction Advisory Council, we now have a package of policies that would achieve this goal. And Susan went through some of the goals, and those are the bulleted items in the petition. So we'll just skip over those because you heard about them. We call on you to include this full policy package in your 2026 executive budget. The Urban Institute estimates these policies would reduce child poverty by 50% if they are fully implemented and reach every eligible household. Although full implementation will take time, child poverty is continuing to rise, and federal policies on the horizon may move us in the wrong direction. Now is the time for decisive action for New Yorkers in need. Including the full package of policies in your budget would demonstrate that New York is serious about meeting the 50% poverty reduction goal by 2030. New York has the resources to make this transformation investment in our children and families. Our state is home to 130 billionaires, that's with a B, as well as some of the wealthiest, most profitable corporations in the world. In the first half of 2024, for example, Wall Street posted profits of $23.2 billion, nearly 80% higher than the previous year. We call on you to fund these child poverty reduction policies through progressive taxes that target the ultra wealthy. The Urban Institute estimates the cost of this policy package to be just under $9 billion. There are proposals currently in the New York State legislature that would raise more than 5 times that amount by modestly increasing taxes on the wealthiest individuals and corporations. These include implementing a capital gains tax, raising corporate taxes on the most profitable companies, making our income taxes more progressive, taxing billionaire wealth, and creating an heirs tax. As the Trump administration prepares to cut taxes on the wealthy and cut the safety net programs, New York can take the opposite path to invest in our families and communities. We are facing hard times ahead, especially for already vulnerable communities, including immigrants, LGBTQ people, and poor and low-income people. It is all the more urgent for New York to marshal the abundant resources of our state to help struggling families weather the challenges to come. We look forward to working with you to accomplish this through the 2026 New York State budget. So that's what we're asking for from the governor. And I think now, so we're hoping that you would sign the petition in a minute. I think there might be a link to the petition. We're also hoping that you would share this on social media, email friends, if you could email friends and spread this far and wide so that we get as many signatures as possible, that will be great. And I think we have a toolkit as well, if you want to share that.
So we're actually going to play a video while everyone signs the petition. So please sign this petition, enjoy the music. We'll be back with everyone in about a few minutes. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody. And I see I'll put a link again. I know sometimes it's hard to click on the link out of the Zoom. So there may be one that works better in there right now. Thank you so much, everybody. We are gonna move into this next section of hearing from a few other folks and sharing some more next steps and prayer and some more music to send us on our way. But we have a lot of organizing and work ahead of us. And we are really blessed to have with us a great organizer in New York State doing this work, Carolyn Martinez-Class, who is the campaign manager for the Invest in Our New York Coalition, is here, and I will turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Wes, and good evening, everyone. For folks who do not know me, my name is Carolyn Martinez-Class. I manage the Invest in Our New York campaign, and I'm based in Brooklyn. For folks who may not know, Invest in Our New York, or IONI, you'll hear me call it that, is a campaign for a more economically just New York. Our agenda calls for the state government to raise new public dollars by taxing the ultra-rich to fund the programs and services that improve the lives of all New Yorkers. Things like affordable housing, quality public education, universal childcare, access to great health insurance, and more. To give folks some context, New York State has a budget of over $230 billion. New York is also home to the greatest economic inequality in the country. We have the highest concentration of billionaires anywhere in the US. While 1 in 5 children live in poverty in our state, 1 in 24 people in our state are millionaires. While working class people are struggling, Wall Street profits are up 80% compared to this time last year. And corporate profits are up in part because corporations increase costs for goods and services, passing it off as inflation. The inflation we've seen, there is some inflation that has happened over the course of the last few years, but that doesn't fully account for how expensive living in our state has become, right? And, we have to ground the inequality here as a result of decades of government inaction, right? A government that has allowed the super rich to grow richer based on our work and at the expense of our communities. New York, just to give a little more context, New York receives about $86 billion in federal funding. That's nearly 40% of our total state budget. And those dollars go towards primarily permanent programs that New Yorkers, and particularly working class and low income New Yorkers, rely on. Things like Medicaid, that is the biggest expense that the federal government gives towards here in New York. Public education, social welfare programs, including SNAP, Head Start, temporary assistance for needy families, the Child Care Development Fund, and then billions of dollars that aren't technically part of our state government that go towards NYCHA, so public housing in New York City, and the MTA. And so, I want to provide that as part of the context we're moving through, knowing that the incoming federal administration has been clear about their agenda, right? Tax breaks for the ultra rich and cuts to our social safety net. And those are going to be the programs where if the federal government starts making deep cuts, those are going to be the most immediately felt. And those are the programs that overwhelmingly working class and low-income families rely on in our state, right? And so New York State, Governor Hochul, Majority Leader Stewart Cousins, and Speaker Hasty, they have an opportunity and a responsibility, right, to intervene and protect New Yorkers from expected cuts from the federal government. And, right, we know that just taking the position that we just have to prevent cuts is not enough and it's not good enough and it doesn't actually meet where we are in this moment, there's the alternative, right? We need them to expand current existing programs and services, including programs that meaningfully and deeply address child poverty. And we need new things. We need new state spending that aims to cut down on child poverty and poverty broadly across the state. And so, our state leaders can and should take action. When you go to Albany and make demands of legislators to implement the recommendations that are expected to be coming, and they ask, how are we supposed to pay for those things? You've heard the numbers. We have over 130 billionaires in New York. We have over 350,000 millionaires. Those folks can afford to pay a little more in taxes. The tax program that the Invest in Our New York campaign is advocating for, which folks have already heard some about, include 5 bills, raising personal income taxes on millionaires and billionaires, raising corporate taxes on the wealthiest corporations profiteering in our state, including Amazon, including Tyson, including Shell. And then a series of wealth taxes that are aimed to close loopholes that the ultra-rich use to avoid paying taxes presently. With that package of bills, we can raise tens of billions of dollars that can go back toward our communities and our families. And we know that New Yorkers, right, we deserve better. We deserve better, certainly, than the status quo. And we can do better. The possibilities are there. And so, we hope you'll be able to join us in continuing to advocate towards this, to the state government to raise taxes specifically on millionaires, billionaires, and ultra-wealthy corporations and invest those dollars in working class communities here in our state.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. We're really grateful for the work that you and the Ione Coalition does. It is so important to talk about the enormous resources that exist in this state and change the conversation from just being about preventing cuts to actually making the investments that we know we need. So as we've heard, we have a lot of work ahead of us, and it's not just work for each of us as individuals to do, but it's also work that we can participate in as part of communities, including congregations and other organizations like that. And in a minute, I'm going to go through a couple of the next steps, but first we're going to share some recorded remarks from Sahib Shekma, who is the Executive Director of the United Muslim Alliance of Albany, and is one of the faith organizations that is going to be part of this effort this year.
Good evening, my friends. This is Dr. Sahib Shekma, the Executive Director at United Muslim Alliance of Albany. It's an honor to be part of this group. I do regret not being with you in person, but the honor is the fact that whether we are together in one room or we're meeting virtually, or even with me recording this video, what brings us together is the commitment to something that is bigger than me and you. It's beyond me and you. It's beyond our generation, beyond our time. And it's something that we are to be committed to for the rest of our lives. It's our future. It's our children. And as we are exploring the reality that our children are living, we want to make sure that we have our eyes on the future. As many people think that this is a compromise that our government needs to make, I have to remind each and every one of us that this is an investment in our children. The reality that 1 out of every 5 children in the state of New York, in one of the richest countries in the world, in one of the considered richest states in the country and the world, yet we are faced with this reality. We actually have a higher poverty rate compared to more than 40 states in this country itself. This is not something that allows any one of us, the activists and the community leaders here, to have a good night's sleep. Knowing that actually, matter of fact, in some areas in New York, out of every 2 kids, 1 is actually living in their poverty. We have our asks, and we want the governor to make sure that she takes all of these asks that were mentioned earlier and factor them into the budget. But even if that happens, and we want to push, let us keep in mind that our goal by 2033 is to cut the poverty by half, which means we still have a long way to fight. It's a marathon, and it starts here, and it might end somewhere else where we might not see the finish line, but we want to make sure that we are handing over the torch to others after fighting the fight. So I applaud you for being committed, and I applaud you for not giving up. Let's keep fighting for our children. Let's keep fighting for the future of this state and for this country. Thank you.
So as Sahib just mentioned, this is a marathon, both for the long-term goal to end poverty in our state and also for the goal of getting these policies into this next year's budget. And so really briefly want to go over some of the next steps. This petition that we've gone over tonight is about letting the governor know we are watching and that these are priority issues to us, and getting that message to her in the coming month and a half while she is and her team are putting together their executive budget proposal. So the toolkit that's been shared in the chat, and we can keep sharing it, has some tools for you to organize your network, whether that's your family, your friends, your coworkers, or the organizations and congregations that you belong to. We are also inviting congregations and organizations to sign on to this as well. So there's some sample content in there that you can use to get the word out. And there is also a rally in person coming up actually next week on Tuesday that we urge folks who might be able to get to Albany next Tuesday to attend. There's a link to that at the end of that toolkit as well. This is going to be a rally with a bunch of groups in support of the Child Poverty Reduction Advisory Council and these recommendations that they're putting together. So that is coming up on Tuesday. And then we are going to be pushing out this petition until December 22nd. And these plans are really just coming together. So stay tuned. We will share more soon, but I want to invite folks to save the date, late afternoon on December 22nd, when we have kind of tentative plans to be delivering this petition to the governor's mansion in Albany, and to as part of that, also be acknowledging the Las Posadas period that is going to be happening at that time. So stay tuned for that. And this is just the beginning. Then when the new year begins, we will see what is in the governor's budget and respond to that, and be turning to our other legislative leaders and officials to take the next step and stick with this fight until the budget is due April 1st. In recent years, it has been late, but that's the timeline for really trying to push through this year. So we are really grateful to folks who have joined and stayed with us tonight, and really look forward to continuing to work with you. So we're going to move towards closing, and for that, I want to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Reverend Liz Theo-Harris, who is the director of the Kairos Center and one of the co-chairs of the National Poor People's Campaign.
Thank you so much, Reverend West, and thank you all for joining us this evening. I want to get us ready to close with a prayer that's in the toolkit that we're hoping everyone will use and spread as we call more people into this petition and into this campaign to really lift the load of poverty. And then before everyone goes, we will also close in song. But will you pray with me now? God of righteousness, truth, love, and life, you have told us to do what is right, to rescue from the hand of the oppressor the one who has been robbed, to do no wrong or violence to the immigrants, the vulnerable, or the children, and to stop depriving the poor of their rights, making poor mothers and homeless children our prey. You have commanded us to love our neighbor as ourselves, to let the children come forward in fullness and abundance, and to bring good news, not the bad news of education cuts and hunger, to those made poor by systems and structures. Yet here in New York, we live in the most unequal state in the nation. Millions of families live in poverty or one storm, job loss, healthcare crisis from economic ruin. Nearly half of the kids in our state are poor, and 100,000 children in the New York City public schools have nowhere to call home. God of justice, strengthen us in a commitment to lift the load of poverty. Help us to see that in this state and in this nation, we can make poverty history. We can expand the Empire Child Credit and cash assistance programs. We can create rental assistance and food assistance programs. We can include immigrant families and Native families and rural families and big city families and small town families and all shapes and sizes of families. We can have a fair taxation system that invests our treasure where our hearts should be, in our children and our state's most vulnerable people. Holy God, just like Moses and Miriam led the people out of poverty and oppression in prayerful protests and songs of righteousness, may we too lead the people up and out of poverty in New York State now. Just like Muhammad, peace be upon him, called the people to prayer, may we pray with our hearts and our feet that every need be filled, every body be healed. Just like Krishna readied himself to fight for good against all forms of wickedness and injustice, may we too get ready for a struggle to lift from the bottom so everybody can rise. And just like Jesus sent out people ready to bring your reign of abundance for all here on earth, in groups and in pairs, may we go out together, spreading peace, love, and justice to all. Holy God, send us into this broken world to declare everybody in, nobody out. God of justice, remind us we are powerful and hopeful and loving enough to restore the streets to live in, to make the community livable again. Loving God, help us to stand for our children. This is a prayer. May it be so. Amen.
Amen. Amen. We are really blessed to have Jamel Coy Hudson with us to close us out in song. I'm going to turn it over to you, Jamel. Thank you so much.
Peace be upon you. Thank you all for being here at this gathering, this important meeting. We know New York continues to face unacceptably high rates of child poverty, the worst income inequality in the nation. The challenges are real, but so are our convictions, our unity, our solidarity. And together, we're going into the year 2025 at a Kairos moment. Governor Hochul, the state legislature, they have an opportunity to pass transformative policies, holding the wealthy and the privilege to account so that those who are in poverty, those families, those children can be served. So now is the time to act. So we're going to close by lifting our voice in solidarity together. We're going to sing a song where we're all going down to the rich man's house. We're all going to go down and we're going to say, not another child in poverty. We're going to say, not going to allow another part of this system to hurt our families. We're not going to let it walk all over us. So join me, lift your voice. Let's go on down to the rich man's house and take back what they stole from us. I went down to the rich man's house. I took back what he stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity. I went down to the rich man's house. I took back what he stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity. And now it's under my feet. It's under my feet. It's under my feet. It's under my feet. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me. Oh Lord. I went down to the rich man's house. I took back what he stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity. Well, I went down to the rich man's house and I took back what he stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity, and now it's under my feet. It's under my feet. It's under my feet. It's under my feet. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me. Oh Lord. Mm. I went down to the governor's house. I took back what she stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity. Woo! I went down to Wall Street. I took back what they stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back, oh, 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 oh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me. Oh Lord, oh Lord. I went down to the legislature. I took back what they stole from me. I took back my dignity. I took back my humanity. Oh, oh. I went down to the prophecy. I took back what they stole from me. Look here. No more children in poverty. No, no. No more children in poverty. Not another child. Not another child. Not your child. Not my child. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me. No, no, no. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me. No, 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 no. Ain't gonna let no system walk all over me.